What up, Random Rockers? Today, we're keeping it real, and we're going to be talking about a movie I just saw last night in Father Stew. Personally, I think it's good. It's good. Stars Mark Wahlberg, produced by Mark Wahlberg. Clearly, this film is it's about a priest named Stu who essentially was a bad boy boxer that converted and turned into a priest, despite even and all the challenges he goes through. And there's a lot of I feel like the reviewer Zach Pope is probably one of the better reviewers that is more of a non-religious perspective, that does a better job of showing and saying why this is a good movie. It has its flaws, clearly. The big thing is it's rated R because of the mouthiness of it, but more so because Father Stu was raised in a family of people who did probably believe, but became non-believers because of the incident that had happened with because of what had happened to his younger brother, who died tragically too soon, and how it affected him mentally as a kid, and how his parents' upbringing and affected the rest of them, and how it in turn messed him up a lot, and it's what led him to where he is. Him eventually. And we just find the journey of how he basically came into the faith, or at least what led him into the faith, and all this other stuff. And as far as the way it's handled, I think it's handled quite well. Even as somewhat of a Catholic, I would start off in saying, in that regard, if you are, more than likely my higher rating of Horns Up, on the lower end for sure. And it's more so if you did it like I did with a group of friends, a fellow Catholics around you as well helps for sure. In this case, though, I get the language barrier, but I don't think everyone has the issue with the language. So, and Mark Wahlberg's performance definitely is a big thing. Mel Gibson is basically at this point being exactly what he's being portrayed as, or at least his performance of playing Bill Stu, or Bill Lawn, Lawn's father, played by Mel Gibson, who apparently his girlfriend, I'm forgetting her name, she's apparently made a directorial debut, but you can kind of, as having seen The Passion, another film that has a similar type of subject matter and a certain particular target audience like this film does, you totally can kind of tell that Mel probably gave her some directing pointers, and it's why the film turns out as well as it does, even for being a directorial debut. And for being a small budget as it kind of is compared to some of the other bigger, more blockbuster types, especially given how the level The Passion of Christ was. And everyone calling it that much of a... So that film is some BS, and plus they actually had moments in there as flashbacks of some of the lessons that he taught, and how they just sort of couldn't coincide with why he is, and why that, or at least that's what I got from how The Passion is. Sorry for the comparison, but it's going to probably get that in terms of how it's directed and shot, because of Gibson's involvement with said director, with the director, and what he's done from The Passion. It was going to happen here, and clearly Mark Wahlberg still kind of has his Mark Wahlberg-isms, but you can definitely tell this is one of his better performances as an actor in a while, for sure. Some people comparing it to other types of films, and whatnot, but yeah, as somewhat of a Catholic myself, and the source material of Catholicism in general, I feel it does do a good job of portraying at least a lot of what I've grown up to, which has been post-Vatican II Council, which has been up for debate as being a little more Protestant-y, and there's some of that, and there are moments where I feel bad for the lady that became essentially his muse that led him into the church. And the how he what led to his accident, and I feel those who don't understand that when Jesus met him, essentially what wound up being Jesus meeting him, essentially, for those who don't know, there is this thing called a hypostatic union. This theory known as hypostatic union, which is the union of God being all God, which is what Jesus is, all God, all human. So this was more him being being all God, all knowing, all this stuff, knowing his fate, and his humanity showcasing in this sense, and giving him an out, in a sense, and warning him about his. And if that were the case, if he did take it and listen, there's a possibility we wouldn't be calling him Father Stu, and I would say he probably would have possibly married the girl, maybe, and eventually still had the call into service, but might have waited a deacon. That's my guess as to what could have, or at least that's the way the scene played out, in a way that I felt led to that alternate reality thing. Plus, it was also weird they chose the same actress who played the love interest to play Mary, so that was interesting. Shows a little bit on the budget, but I do feel like the passion that Mark Wahlberg is showcasing and wanting to get this movie out, his performance in it, him as producing this, and apparently being a pretty devout, showcasing truly his devoutism as a Catholic. And I think in that regard, despite how Hollywood is apparently about him now, or at least those that saw Patriots Day in Boston don't favor him, but at least I guess he's definitely won some of us Catholics over, that's for sure. Weird moment in the movie where I almost wanted to say in my brain, say hi to Mother Mary for me. So don't tell me there wasn't some people that thought that too, by the way. So, but yeah, overall, sorry. I enjoyed this movie. I hope you guys did too. Sorry for the lighting. It's dark. I was hoping to have more natural lighting to talk about this movie. I felt like he did good. All the other actors' performances were good in it, and the moments that are preachy, by the way, is when he's actually doing his job when you're doing homilies, so it's not really that bad. And aside from maybe moments in confessing and just doing his job, his somewhat priestly or some clergyman duties. So, as someone in that regard, but however, what I didn't get to tell you guys is thumbs up. It is the best I can probably give this, because as a movie, it is genuinely good. I've heard Double Toasted gave it a rental. I think I would have been much nicer instead of matinee, because technically, when I went to see this movie with this group of people, we were all paid basically a deal with a $5 deal, which would essentially be like a matinee price. And in that regard, I'd say, given the circumstances, yeah, this is great. I would say for people who are hoping for this to be more family-oriented film, it's not. The language barrier, and there are some slight moments, but it's not in a way would be disturbing for the more clearly Catholic audience that's more likely going to go to see this. But it's suggestive at best. At its, or in the case of certain Catholics, family types, the worst, I guess you would probably think. But in terms of the message and the story that it relates to for him, it was worked for what it needed to be, and to still somehow service as both a feel-good movie and a slight tearjerker, for given it is tragic in terms of that, but it's not because he in turn, despite how he became physically ill, how he is mentally and is spiritually is as a person, and in the case of this as a movie, the character of Father Stu progresses. And I think that in that regard, that's the good thing about the main character, that you want to still be engaged with him, but you understand him being a bit too headstrong and all this other stuff. But that's kind of it. That's my qualms, I guess, or that's my feeling about it, like what that could have been. And it's also why I think Mary was the one that showed up instead, because Jesus wouldn't have been able to handle it because of his own humanity himself. So from those moments, that's what I'm gathering. I'm still throwing it in, but I understand if some people that don't are the ones that are mostly the ones that are hating this, if we're being honest. But and are putting this in that category of how the religious movies are bad. This is one of those few exceptions, honestly, and I feel like I would wait. If you do decide to do it with the family, make sure they're of a certain age that's probably closer to the demographic of a rated R film that can handle this type of stuff. I wouldn't definitely not have little kids when having to ask questions about the languages and what does this mean and learning things they shouldn't in school. So, that's what I'm saying. But overall, for the most part, as just a film, it's at the most I can give. You can't say at least it's a thumbs up. Low to a high-end thumbs up, I guess, if you're just more of a moviegoer, but a high-end thumbs up to a low horns up, or end of my higher rating of horns up for someone who is Catholic. That's my thoughts on this. What did you guys think of Father Stu? Leave a comment below. Let me know. As always, guys, keep it. Links in the description below to some of my socials and the dungeon and amongst other things. If you like this video, rock that like button with the rest of you must. Hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell. As always, guys, and it's a good biopic, so check it out. Anyways, I don't know if I would say go out in a theater to see it unless it's like unless you're with a certain group of people that have that mindset and can tell you they did the faith right portion of it correctly. Or at least of the current stasis. Though I'm wondering what the time frame was of this movie. I forgot to mention that before I completely close this out. Because it seems it's clearly before cell phones, or at least before good cell phones. But it's definitely post after Vatican II. So I'd say could be somewhere within the 80s to the maybe late 90s or something. And the dude recently died in like 2000, and the Father Stu Lawn essentially died around 2014. Passed away at 2014, so almost 10 years ago. So apparently 8 years to the point of this movie, and apparently this movie was 6 years in the making since 2016, so 2 years after he had passed. And he was told to do it by some people that heard about him, some priests that heard about him and all this stuff. Like, there's going to be some certain places like EWT, and then I'll probably tell where he has the talks and tells you about lie. But you know what, Mark? Good on you for doing this. And for what it is, I had a good time. Thanks. For those of you, as always, keep it random, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I will see you in the next video. Take care, y'all.